Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmer, together with my co-host Mark Ronachah of jbiztechvalley.com and Statewide News Service.
Well, Rabbi, you know, we always like to have elected officials, especially local elected officials, on the program. And today we have the Bethlehem Town Supervisor, John Clarkson, a Democrat, and welcome to the Jewish View.
Again. Thank you very much.
Again, it's been a while.
Happy birthday, Mark.
Well, thank you. Now everyone will know when we're taking. Okay. So, John, tell me, if you had to give, in January you give your State of the Town address, but if you had to give it today, can you give me a preview in maybe 5 minutes, a short version of what you would say the state of the town is?
Certainly, I've begun to think about it because it's that time of year. You look to the new year. This would be my 4th year in office, so I'm looking very tremendously forward to it. And I think the issues are going to be nothing totally new, but a lot of things that we're following through on for many years. People have been working on planning in the town, on open space preservation. People have been interested and concerned about pedestrian and traffic issues. That's one of the major issues that I sort of ran into as supervisor that I didn't run on. I wasn't, thinking about in particular, but it's what people care about.
I see a lot of sidewalks being made in Bethlehem. I could see that.
Especially Furbush Road.
Yes.
Furbush Road, I don't know if it's a lot yet, but actually it's there. It's over by the Ellesmere School where we put in a sidewalk on Herrick, so we could reroute a very dangerous crosswalk across Delaware Avenue. And other little improvements around, but we're working on a sidewalk on Delmar Place and Fernbank. That's funded through Safe Routes to Schools, and improvements in a lot of areas. One of the takeaways the board and I have had from this one, not totally modest, but one investment in Furbush Road is an incredible support for the community for it, and including people who don't live right next to there. But the reason why Furbush Road was first is we actually have a methodology that rates the most serious important needs based on how many people live in an area, are there destinations at the end of it, and is there a safety issue? And in that regards, Furbush Road has been the #1 sidewalk need for many, many years. Now, we try through the town to keep expenses down, so we try to get aid where we can. We do work with developers. If you build a new development, you may expect it to contribute to the pedestrian needs, but we can only do that as they come. And we looked at Furbush Road and said, well, that won't work there. It's the #1 need, so what are we going to do? Forever say, well, we hope something comes along? No, we thought it was time to act, and we built the sidewalk with the help of our highway department, and the response has been tremendous. So the problem is...
It's going to go all the way to Elm Park because it's like only halfway done now.
It's halfway done. Next summer we will go back and we will construct from Ellesmere up to Elm. And I'd like to try and find a way to get around the corner to the park too, but right now we're only planning to continue up on Furbush Road to Elm.
Do you have to take property, like eminent domain, a small piece of property, to put those sidewalks in? Or?
Not usually, because it's a little known fact, but the town and the state actually already own what's called the right-of-way, and that's usually 10 to 15 feet beyond the road. So you may plant shrubs there. You really shouldn't plant trees without permission, but you may mow the lawn, but it's actually owned by the government. So in the case of most sidewalks, in most cases, it's right in the right-of-way.
Okay, cool. You had an issue several months ago about raising property taxes, I think, on commercial use, or people who have basically land that was wooded or something. Can you explain that to the audience?
We reassessed this year, the town did, and that's something you're supposed to do periodically. In fact, New York State would like you to do it every 4 years. We had not done it for 8 years. Frankly, reassessment is difficult. It means we go out and professionally appraise what is property worth. That's what the property tax requires us to do. So, it's not for sissies. Reassessment is difficult. We were aided by an assistant. I say we, it's the assessor's job. The town board does not enter into the values, but the town board did provide resources to hire the consultant, which the assessor had requested. In the end, after you've revalued every property, obviously there are some shifts. Your house might have been undervalued or overvalued. Your neighbors might be undervalued and overvalued. By and large, and one part of this we expected that there would be a larger share of the tax burden carried by the commercial sector. And simply put, that was the trend in values. The issue which you alluded to, that some of the vacant properties were under-assessed, at least by current standards, was one we didn't know about, but we certainly did run into it, and you may have seen that there was a lot of pushback on that issue. Although the board doesn't set the values, I did spend a lot of time looking into the issues, because people were worried. They said, well, my assessment's going up a lot. And what I generally found is that the assessments in that area hadn't been updated and really bore no rational relationship to value. So that was the problem. There was no way around it. The law is the law. There's no way to phase it in. So we sort of looked for everything we could do, and in the end, we had to satisfy ourselves by talking to the affected landowners and saying, well, come here, use this process, but this is the way the valuation process works. We also got...
Well, were they satisfied?
I could not say that they were 100% satisfied. It's hard for...
Did they pay? Did they sue? Did they pay? Did they bite their lip? I mean, are they...
Probably a mix of those. We had people who grieved their assessment, which is a normal process. You can do that. We had people who went through the small claims process, and there are other court procedures, but by and large, no more than you would expect in a normal reassessment. That happened, but at this point, the values are in and they're set, unless you happen to be in a court proceeding.
So when these large commercial property owners say, well, now we're going to sell off our land, we're going to cut down our trees, we're going to subdivide, whatever it might be, do you care? Does it matter to you? Does it...
Oh, sure. Well, I was about to segue to one thing we got. They're mainly not commercial property owners. They're vacant land, like a couple hundred acres, maybe an old farm or something like that. That's where most of the rubber. On them. Many of them have trees. Many are old fields. Some are under development or planned for development. So we did everything we could legally within the rules of law in terms of coming up with value. We couldn't simply say, well, I understand that this is difficult for you, so we'll lower the value. That's not the board's role. That's not in fact legal. That's why we have it's a separate function. We did look into it, and we got, and this was, I have to credit Assemblywoman Fahey and Senator Breslin for getting Bethlehem special legislation so we could offer a conservation easement property tax exemption. Brand new program. Bethlehem just got permission to do it, and that will give landowners an exemption from 50% to 90% if they are planning to conserve their land and willing to sign a conservation easement. This in essence says, I won't develop for X number of years, at least 15 and up to perpetuity. So that could be very useful. You have to be, of course, in a position to want to do this, and not everyone is. But for some people who may have inherited a family farm, who don't want to see it developed, or don't want to develop it right away, they could certainly do that, and that will be a very large tax savings for them. The county and the school district have the option of participating. It applies by default to municipal and fire district taxes. So right now we're working with Albany County, and Dan McCoy, the county executive, supports it. And we're working with the school districts, the three of them that are within town, RCS, Bethlehem Central, and Guilderland. So we hope that they will adopt into it, because we think the community is very much supportive of and interested in maintaining open space.
Okay, so overall, when you do this reassessment, are you expecting more income from taxes, property taxes, less, the same?
The same. There's really no relation. It determines who pays it.
I was just curious.
What is interesting, and I hope people notice this who live in Bethlehem, the vast majority of homeowners are paying lower school taxes, but I've talked to a number of people and they don't know it. So I'd like you to check, because chances are you're paying lower school taxes. If your assessment stayed the same, you're paying lower school taxes, and you'll be paying lower town and county taxes. If your assessment went up, a little, say up to 5%, so say on a $200,000 house, that'd be $10,000, okay? You're exactly even. You're where you would have been otherwise. A lot of people said, oh, it's reassessment, it goes up, that means more taxes, but it really doesn't do that. What controls the taxes are how much we need, and it should be, and in the case of Bethlehem, always is, below the property tax cap. The property tax cap has no relation to assessments. It's all how much are you going to levy overall.
So let me, going back to some of these disgruntled property owners, their claim is, we built I don't know, a Boys and Girls Club, or we built, or we put money up to help build, or we donated property that was part of our land many years ago to help build
well, if they donated it or it's for not-for-profit, it's not taxed anyway. So.
No, but I'm just saying that, you know, they say we've been generous to the town, and now the town's coming at us and saying, well, maybe they would.
Well, they're trying to personalize a profession.
Right.
I also had people said, we've lived here for 100 years, shouldn't we have a lower property tax rate? And the answer to that, I'm afraid, is no. We all pay the same tax rate, whether we just moved here, whether we've been here 100 years. It's the rule of law. It's the way things are supposed to operate. If someone new moved to town and we said, well, hey, let's tax them and you know, give ourselves a better rate, that would be wrong, right? And this is kind of the same rationale. Okay, now, so good acts are wonderful. You know, if you give to charity, I guess you can you can deduct it on your income tax.
Right.
If you give a property, you can donate that. You know, you can donate that to her. It becomes not for profit. But I'm not sure.
You know what? You know what's interesting correlation with this, and you know, is that these properties were donated or given over by Republicans when there was a Republican administration. I know
of no such analysis.
No,
okay.
I've done it. I looked to see what the years were when these people were looking when they gave this the property over, and so they were enrolled Republicans, and there was a Republican administration, and the Republican administration kind of looked away, and I did that, and now I'm the one saying it, not you. Okay?
I understand, because that would have been illegal.
But
that would have been against the law, an ethical violation. So I hope that didn't happen, and I can assure you that no such thing happens now.
Right, but the time of the what is it, the time frame of when you could prosecute something like that is,
oh yes,
you know,
yes,
you can't. So I was, you know, yeah, you're wincing, but I'm telling you, this is, you know, there was the correlation there, and what I'm trying to say is, don't you think that this is? I know that you do think you govern at this point, but you're up for re-election next year. Don't you think that this might be politically dangerous, and that some of these people who are upset with you would now run against you and fight, you know,
well, quite honestly,
fire up the crowd?
First of all, I would never maladminister a law in order to gain political favor,
right.
And anyone who shouldn't be occupying or running for public office. Now, on the question of is reassessment, you know, difficult? Yes, it is.
Politically dangerous.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure, and I'd like to think that people will reward someone who is willing to do the right thing governmentally at some risk. And the other thing, as I mentioned, for most people, for normal homeowners within Bethlehem, it's actually resulting in lower taxes. Mm-hmm. I've had a number of conversations with the business community, too, with friends from the Chamber of Commerce, and it's been, okay, well, but I'm going up and I'm having trouble with the rents, and I understand that. And we actually organized through the Chamber. They're providing their own education as to what you should do if you thought you had a problem with your assessment. That's part of the way the system has to work. But I couldn't say, well, all right, let's cut you a deal or let's cut you a deal. I don't do it, first of all, the values, and that would be entirely contra-legal. I will say this, I have learned in talking to the State Office of Real Property Service and that many people, for this reason, sort of don't do the right thing. They don't reassess, and it results in tremendous inequities. So I think it's important that as governmental leaders, we do the right thing, what's the proper administrative thing, and also what's fair to people, right? Because against the examples, some of the ones some people went up, that's true. But a number of people went down or stayed the same and have lower taxes, so they're now paying more of their fair share. In fact, overall, homeowners are paying a much fairer share. Mm-hmm. They were about 80% of the base prior to reassessment. They're now about 76% of the base. So we were overtaxing homeowners, overcharging them for their share of the property tax burden for a great number of years. And the reassessment addressed that. So I would say that's the important point. And I hope, you know, we are concerned about anyone who's seeing higher taxes. There are limits to what we can do. We have to administer the laws that exist. But I do hope that the conservation easement will be helpful to those who would need it and who are in a position to use it. You know, if you're planning to develop your land, you're not going to do it, obviously. But if you are a person with an inherited farm, you're not planning to develop it, you want to preserve it for your children or for whatever purpose, this will give you a very tremendous property tax exemption. And we're hoping very much in working with the school districts and with the county to get them to participate as well.
All right, so in 2015, you're up for re-election. Are you going to run for re-election?
I think it's highly likely. I'm not going to give you 100% right now, but I love the job. I find it fascinating, challenging.
Having fun?
I am having fun.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I am having fun.
Listen, on another note, though, but I just want to give kudos to the town supervisor, Mr. Clarkson, about going to the Hanukkah. We always have a beautiful Hanukkah display. It's just interesting. There's so many towns. Mark probably could tell you how many towns and villages there are in the Capital District. I mean, he always is our government surveyor. But really, we're the only town that has a public Hanukkah menorah in the whole Capital District, and there's a lot of rabbis and a lot of Jewish institutions, and you always come and say some very nice words.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's not only, obviously I have pride because it's Hanukkah and it's Jewish, but I just talk even as a government official, just the beauty of America, that we can look for all religions, coexist with everybody else. Here we always, of course, our Bethlehem TV is very thank you all. So we had the head of the library, and we said thank you to them, and we have our little Hanukkah display right next to the Christmas tree. So we coexist and we get along, and I think it's just, again, thank you for being there, and it's just a beautiful idea what I think America is all about, that different groups and different peoples.
Multicultural.
Yeah, just to live together and accept each other and make it a better city and a country.
Well, I'm glad we have it. It's a wonderful event. It's great to have the gathering, and it gets very complex when it goes into court decisions. But I do feel we should have celebrations of religion in what ways we can.
Have you learned over the years when you've come to the Hanukkah menorah lighting? Have you learned things? Or was this familiar to you already? I mean. You worked in the state budget office before this, but
totally knew it all. No, but some of the pronunciations I still struggle with a bit, but I'm working on it. But no, it's fun. Honestly, I hadn't been to that celebration, but to tell you the truth, I hadn't been to the holiday, which is somewhat of a Christmas parade either, because my kids weren't the right age when they started doing it. But it's great to have, and
but
I see a lot of friends and neighbors.
You're learning more about the holiday of Hanukkah and the cultural end of it, in terms of what we...
To some degree. I hope I'm not going to face a quiz on the air.
No, not for me.
I'll quiz Mark before you over
That's
here.
Right.
We'll see what he gets over
It's a
here.
great event. I'll see if I can come to the one over the weekend, too.
All right,
well,
good.
that's December 16th.
16th?
Yeah.
That's a Tuesday?
Yeah, it's the first night of Hanukkah. We start right off at the...
Yeah, that's a Tuesday.
Yeah, right at the Four Corners.
And what
Everybody
time?
sees it. 4:30, right at dusk. That's when it's supposed to be lit. And
come
again,
out,
we have
come one, come all. Everyone should come out.
Absolutely.
This is the happy little town of Bethlehem.
Lots of parking in the town hall municipal parking lot. I think that's
it's the season to say it's the town of Bethlehem, right?
Indeed, it fits
for many reasons.
City in Israel.
That's right.
That's where it's named from.
Okay, so what do you look forward to bringing together in 2015 to sort of encapsulate?
To sort of continue the agenda issues. We need to keep looking at development, pedestrian and traffic safety. We're going to look at a lot of that. We'll be working with New York State DOT on. They control the speed limits, for example, on the state roads.
No camera lights, right? No camera.
No plans in that direction.
Okay,
no. But we would like to see lower speed limits in a couple of places.
Really? Okay.
Furbush Road is one where we're going to be talking to them. We are studying with New York State DOT the portion of Delaware Avenue from Ellesmere to the city line of Albany. And that's an area they're looking at the speed limit, they're looking at pedestrian issues, they're also looking at the number of lanes. they have an idea that's called a road diet, where you go from 4 lanes to 3. And you might say, oh, well, that's worse. That's less lanes. That's not good. But actually,
slower.
the science of it is not so much so, because you have 3 lanes, the middle one being a turning lane, and that actually in ways makes it a lot easier. Right now, the left lane is a turning lane, and you never know when it's going to stop. You have people seeking to win the race and to zig and zag, and all of that is harmful to traffic flow. The other thing, I'm not a traffic engineer and I don't play one on TV, but I am learning, and I was a commuter for many years to the city of Albany, and it does you no good to speed up to 40 miles per hour for half a mile and then to wait in line for, 3 or 4 cycles of a traffic light. It doesn't get you to work any faster. So they will look at issues like that and hopefully come up with some recommendations that will tie into the enhancement, the repaving, and the rebuilding of the sidewalks on Delaware Ave, which we're planning for 2016.
Okay.
And beyond that, we have a lot of land use oversight and regulation issues and planning. Frankly, I want to look again at the Hudson Riverfront area. We had a draft version of a local waterfront revitalization plan years ago that was put together. It's a big book this thick, but frankly, when you finish reading it, you say, now wait a second, what did that say? It's not quite clear. It doesn't really sketch out, I think, a plan where we can move forward. And
I
we
always
have
go to the back and read the end first.
Even in some cases that'll help, and in the case of this draft, I don't think it will, but we've had that feedback from a citizens committee that looked overall at planning, and we need to get together another process to look at that. We have the privilege of being located on the river. We have a great park, Henry Hudson Park,
Right.
but we have other areas and access and development issues that we really should address.
Route 144 corridor.
144 River Road is really the access point to that. That's a road I used to go bicycle riding on when I first came to Albany in the late 70s. That was what you did. You rode down to Henry Hudson Park and up to Thatcher too.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays it's a very challenging and a worrisome road to ride your bicycle on. It's a lot of truck traffic, 55 miles per hour, difficult shoulder. We can't do this overnight, and frankly it's a state road, it's up to them. But if we outline a plan where we could make that area more attractive and more accessible, we really would help ourselves in a number of ways. It would help overall values in the community. It would help in appropriate places, build business where we'd want to see it, restaurants, marinas, those sort of things. Mm-hmm. And I'd really like to take another look at that. So,
like what Yanni's 2 developed.
Exactly, same type of place. We don't have anything like that in all the 11 miles that we have.
Right, because you had the boathouse in Albany by the Corning Preserve, and then you got Yanni's 2 and nothing in between.
We're planning to go over there in the middle of the night, untether the boathouse, and bring it down to Henry Hudson. But looking at things like that,
right.
And we have an industrial section up by the Albany line too. We want to look at that. We have to kind of look at all the different uses.
Does Bethlehem get those oil tankers coming through the town, and are you concerned about the oil tankers if they do come through the town? Like,
you mean on the river, or are you talking about the train issue?
No, well, I'm talking about on the river.
On the river.
They have those black oil tankers that everyone's saying, if it turns over, we're going to have Armageddon here, and it's going to be...
We don't, it's not the town's business to regulate, though of course we're concerned.
Well,
and we did have one near, we had one near miss,
But those tracks do come through Bethlehem, right?
Yes. If you're talking about the rail traffic, yes, that's an issue we're very much involved in. Again, we can't regulate, but we've been working with CSX, with our state and national legislators, and following the issue. Bill Reinhardt has been focusing on it particularly, and we're concerned. Bill is Mr. Environment and Mr. Energy, and he's been talking with leaders in the city of Albany, talking with folks in the county legislature, and keeping us apprised.
I understand those tankers come from North Dakota, and it has to deal with fracking in North Dakota, and that's where they're extracting the oil to bring down to this part of the country. That's what I've been told. We had Peter Iwanowitz on as a guest.
He would know better than I. Peter would, as would Bill. But I normally hear it referred to as back in crude, and it's it's the way that a lot of the petroleum industry is functioning now.
The gas prices have gone down. We are pumping more oil. We are doing more oil transportation in this country than ever before, and it's domestic oil. And our prices have gone down almost in some areas of the close to the Albany area. It's less than $3.
Yeah, this is the trade-off. Now, as a town official, honestly, I focus on the things where I've got the role. Working with the Selkirk Fire Department and the other fire departments, working with CSX, making sure our emergency protocols and training are up to snuff. And I have found CSX very cooperative in that regard and helpful. I think it's an important issue. I'm glad it's receiving focus at the state and national level, and we're trying to keep tabs on it to see what else we might do.
Okay, because they're saying these trains are very safe, that even if they have, I guess, turned over, but there's so many layers within insulation within.
Well, they're
tankers.
upgrading actually the standards for the cars, so it's a question of when they'll get to that. And that's better, certainly. Even with that, there's still a danger, and there's always been the danger. By the way, and not to worry, but there are lots of things other than crude oil that are shipped via the railroad. In fact, just about every hazardous substance you can imagine is shipped via the railroad.
Right.
That's how we move it. So we have to worry about all these issues and make sure we're prepared for all of them.
I always tell these people who are anti-fracking and anti-this and anti-that, that they would probably be anti-automobile in the very beginning of the automobile, because they were combustible, they would just break out in flames, people would die. And then, yeah, and now all of a sudden, the automobile is our lifeblood. And, but in the very beginning, when we had the Model A Ford, Model T, they were not very safe
we're getting better at designing cars that use petroleum more wisely, produce less pollution, all of that.
So we're going to get better at these tankers to come through as our gas prices plummet.
Yeah.
and we don't rely on foreign oil. And that's the way I look at it. And we're contributing to the lack we're helping in that, in relying more on domestic oil than foreign oil.
There's a plus and minus to everything.
I know.
I think he's going above my pay grade here. I'm only working to make sure we're prepared to the extent we can before this, and that we, the town, are represented and hearing from people who are looking at this issue.
We only a few minutes. You have one more good question over here, Mark.
I have one good
concluding question. You're the reporter here.
Why do you want to lower the speed limit? New York City lowered the speed limit from 30 to 25. Why do you want to lower the speed limit?
We can't go to 25. We can't do what New York City did. We're looking at a few selected areas. If you think about the various connector roads you travel on, whether it's Wemple Road, Fisher Boulevard, Cherry Avenue, or the extension, they're all at different speeds. And I think we ought to have a sensible connected policy. I also think we've got to look at.
I agree with you on that. I got to tell you.
Are we really, are we taking a chance to no good reason? And now there are better people more versed in this, including the state DOT people, but having a higher speed limit that's not getting anyone there faster and indeed is causing traffic problems, that's kind of a no-brainer. Having a dangerous crosswalk, that's a no-brainer. There might be other harder choices we're going to run into, but so far we're looking at the biggest issues where we think they're
I didn't hear you mention anything
simple.
about smart streets, and that includes bicycle lanes.
Complete streets, no, that's part of it.
Streets,
that's very much part of the study on Delaware Avenue from Ellesmere to the city line. We would be adding bicycle lanes if we go to that. And we have done it when the state, after a lot of kibitzing, I don't know, our advocacy from the townspeople, repaved Kenwood Avenue. And doing so, they also put in share the road markers, crosswalks, and other things. They couldn't widen it, and in fact, sometimes what you ask for is kind of counterintuitive. I want a wider road to ride a bicycle. Then what happens? The traffic speeds up. So you have to look at all those impacts.
No, but to share the road markers on the pavement is very smart.
They are helpful, and frankly, we're trying to do a lot of consciousness raising. People need to know to stop in a crosswalk for pedestrians, whether they're in it or just entering it. That's a motorist responsibility. And people also need to understand that the bicyclists have a right to use the road on the right-hand lane, and you should be watching for them just as you would watch for children who might be wandering out into the street when they should not. It's part of our communal responsibility.
And walk-facing traffic.
Walk-facing
and
traffic, ride with
bicycle,
traffic.
ride with traffic. Okay.
Very good.
Mark's got it down. He's a good pedestrian. We're out of time. Thank you very much, Town Supervisor John Clarkson, for coming again and keeping us abreast of what's happening in our beautiful town of Bethlehem, and wish you a lot of more continued success, and do it with good health.
And much success, yes.
Thank you very much. I'll see you on the 16th, correct?
Got it, okay.
Happy birthday again.
Thank you.